Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Nawal Rihan, and I'm a current Nutrition Medical Sciences student here at UCL, and I'll be your chair for today. We hope that you have had the chance to look at our Faculty of Medical Sciences Open Day video on our website, and this is an open day Q&A session which will address those kind of course-specific questions that you may have. And we will help you to gain an insight into what it is really like to study on our Nutrition and Medical undergraduate course. So today our speaker is Dr. Adrian Slee, who will introduce you to the exciting field of medical sciences, followed by an overview of the structure of the program available here at UCL. There will be a Q&A session and plenty of interactive opportunities for you all to join in throughout the event. This session will be recorded and will be made available for you today after today's event. We're here to respond to your questions, so please feel free to share any of those in the chat box or the Q&A function on the Zoom. And so now to introduce our speaker, we have Dr. Adrian Slee. Dr. Adrian Slee is a registered nutritionist and a course director for the BSc in Nutrition and Medical Sciences here at UCL. Dr. Slee teaches and coordinates several modules on both undergraduate and MSc programs and teaches topics including nutrition throughout life cycle and body composition. Dr. Slee conducts research examining the importance of malnutrition in aging and how this relates to virality. Thank you, Dr. Adrian, and now to you.
Thanks so much, Noah. So good afternoon to you. Now, it looks to me that we still only have Chloe and One here, so hope you're doing okay today. You are welcome to use the chat. I think you can even use the microphone potentially. So if you do want to say hi, please feel free. Just to let us know you're there, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm going to talk you through, I'm just trying to share my screen now, a little bit about the course. And for about, say, 15-20 minutes. And then we're going to have a Q&A session, and Noel's going to have a chat to you just before that as well. I'm going to see if I get to presenter mode. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Thank you very much. So I'm the course director for the degree, and just to give you a bit of my background as well. So I did a BSc degree in physiology and biochemistry and nutrition many, many years ago in a far distant planet at the University of Southampton. And my interest was predominantly in things like metabolism and how things are interrelated with nutrition and hormones and things like that. I've got a strong interest in things like exercise as well. How exercise affects the body and affects metabolism, and also specific clinical disease states. And so afterwards, I then did a PhD in nutritional sciences, but it was looking at specifically in skeletal muscle. So I've got an interest in muscle. It's made of protein, for example. It's important, obviously, for exercise, but also it's also very important when we talk about clinical conditions. So, for example, when people get much older and they become frail, they really rely on this muscle to be able to do things like just normal activities of daily living. So, for example, going up and down stairs and stuff. So I thought this is really important. But my PhD was quite molecular orientated. So looking at gene expression of different proteases within muscle. And then I thought, well, I've done a lot of lab work now. I want to become a teacher. So then I become a lecturer. I worked at a number of different places. And I've been a course director at a number of different institutions as well. And my research is predominantly now very clinical focused. So I'm interested in things like malnutrition and muscle waste in different clinical conditions. And on that note, really, is to say that a lot of the research that I do, and a lot of my colleagues do, we integrate that heavily within our teaching. So you find that when you get to like the second and third year and at master's level, a lot of the stuff that you'll learn is very research orientated, and it becomes very interesting. So, so there we go. And you can ask me any questions at all. For example, I can tell you about, for example, the stuff that I've done and how it links to with understanding nutrition and becoming a nutritionist, for example. So this degree was designed and developed in a very specific way. It's a very specialised degree, hence we have nutrition and medical sciences. Has been running since 2017. I'm very proud of this degree for lots of different reasons. One of them is the fact that it's a specialised degree that you don't find anywhere else in the UK, and it's accredited with the Association for Nutrition. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. So the Association for Nutrition is the governing body in the United Kingdom. So the idea is that once you do this degree, it's fully accredited, and you become something called an associate registered nutritionist. And then after, say, 3 years of postgraduate study or working in a company or what have you, you could potentially work with a mentor with clients, you can become a full registered nutritionist. But I'll talk about that a bit later. But it's very important, almost like as a stamp of approval on quality, like a quality control process almost, that we have this accreditation. So we're very proud of this. So just talking about this degree, so why is it different to, say, compared to other nutrition degrees? So first of all, it's definitely not a food science degree. So you might have been looking at different degree courses out there that are nutrition and health, exercise sciences, and food sciences. We're not a food sciences degree. We do very little on the food itself and food chemistry. We're interested in what happens once we consume that food. What happens? How's it metabolized, for example? What does the gut do to it, for example? What happens when it goes into cells, gets broken down to create energy? They're the sorts of things we're interested in. And we have also this very specific applied medical sciences theme, which is very much quite heavily aligned with this in the first year. So what you find is in our first year, we have common modules. So with the nutrition and medical science is part of a number of other programs, of our suite of programs, the integrated medical sciences, the IMS programs. So we have applied medical sciences, sports and exercise medical sciences, cancer biomedicine, for example. And in the first year, students study very similar themes on physiology and pathophysiology of key systems and organs. And then the idea is in the second term of that first year, you do a module that's very specific to your discipline. So, for example, nutrition and nutrition metabolism, that's what Noah's doing at the moment. So at the end of the first year. And then in the second and third year, it's all mostly nutrition and very interesting, exciting and cutting edge modules, actually. So we cover a whole range of different things around obesity and malnutrition, nutrition and metabolism, growth and development, which is very important. Then we have some very specific modules in the third year that I'll talk to you about, such as sports nutrition, clinical nutrition. That becomes important if you want to work, for example, with patients, behavioral nutrition, so interested in psychology and sociology, and things like frailty and aging. And we also have, so the way it works, because our course is very accredited and aligned with the Association for Nutrition, you have a lot of core modules you have to take to tick the boxes to say that you've covered those outcomes. But then you get one optional module in the second year and one in the third year. And again, it can be a whole range of different things. So some people are interested in genetics or cancer, for example. So, for example, and I'll just quickly flip actually to the second year now. So our second year structure. So I'll just because I'm talking about it now, an example of one of the interesting optional modules we have in the second year is nutritional cancer risk in the first term here. So that's, quite fascinating really, where, for example, if you're interested in the effects of different foods, it could be, let's give some examples, the effects of things like red meat or fruits and vegetables or alcohol and how they affect cancer risk. And so we look at that. It's called nutritional epidemiology, so the effects of nutrition on risk of disease. So we look at that in some depth. And that's one example of an exciting module that we cover in the second year. But you can see this is the general structure. Is the idea in term one, we've got the nutrition metabolism, so which leads on from the first year, so there's continuity. That's the idea. We have a logical flow in the structure of our course. So we now cover nutrition metabolism at a greater depth. And that also actually means that it leads on very nicely because we understand what happens, for example, in cellular metabolic pathways. We can then also study growth and development in term two. So that is really useful as well because it leads into that. So for example, growth and development, we cover everything that happens from pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, all the way through to childhood development, adolescence, and even into old age, and what happens, for example, with things like bone development, organ development, for example. And then and some of that, again, we look at things like childhood obesity risk, for example, looking at growth charts. And so you find there's a lot of overlap between this module and then this module, and also this malnutrition obesity module. And then we cover things like, for example, talk about start to begin to talk about things like in aging with osteoporosis risk, where you start to lose bone mass in aging. And so we cover lots of different and interesting topics at all different levels, really, from the cellular and molecular and genetic level all the way to public health, nutrition, and epidemiological level. You can see here as well, there's two modules that run across both terms. There's different reasons why we do that. So, for example, with malnutrition obesity, there's a lot of content we have to cover. And the idea is there's a nice logical flow again throughout the entire year, essentially. And so it means you can cover stuff in depth. Also, the way the assessments are set up, it means there's again that continuity from assessment to assessment. And we seem to find that works quite well alongside these other modules. We want you to learn a bit of statistics. So even if you're not very good at maths, you don't enjoy maths, it's good to understand a bit of statistics, because if you go into research, you do need to do this. And you will do a research dissertation as third year. And so this module here is actually quite important, actually, and leads in also to this module, the research methods module, which again is super important for your dissertation, which is a large project you do in the third year. So the idea is what we try and get you guys to do is to prepare for this in advance. In term two, you start to understand what is research in the first place. What types of research can you do? And we talk about qualitative research and quantitative research, you know, different types and modes and how you might go about doing research. And that gets you thinking and processing for when you do your dissertation a few months later. For example, it'll be October this year for our current year 2 students going to year 3. So again, that is a strategical importance and reason why we put this here. And so you're covering the correct learning outcomes to lead you to do a really good project. We have some other modules. This is interesting. This is the molecular-based disease module, which is also the applied medical sciences students take. And again, you know, our course is nutrition and medical sciences. And so by understanding, for example, different disease conditions and how, again, going back to, you know, I was talking about, for example, with cellular and metabolic level, by understanding how these things are, for example, it could be the pathophysiology of different disease conditions at, for example, a cellular level. That's really important because it's then going to help with all these other modules. So, for example, if you look at the molecular basis of, for example, type 2 diabetes, that's going to be really important in this module because we cover type 2 diabetes or heart disease, atherosclerosis, for example. So it all fits together very nicely, like a bit of a jigsaw. Then in year 3, this is where it gets really exciting, and we do some really interesting modules, which again, I would say we have a really unique set of modules. I don't know of any other course like this in the UK. So for example, starting up here, this is a clinical nutrition module, which leads you on, if you're interested in this and you want to, for example, work in hospitals as a dietitian, this is a really important module because we cover different disease conditions and how they're managed. So we talk about what happens, for example, in, say, kidney disease, or, you know, it could be COPD or intensive care. So what happens to metabolism and nutrient demands, for example, and then how do you manage those conditions nutritionally? And so we have, because we're closely linked with UCL Hospital, the Royal Free Hospital, we very kindly ask dietitians to come in and clinicians, doctors to come in and give very specialised talks on each individual disease condition. And that's a really interesting one. We cover a whole range. We cover, again, things like diabetes, different types of cancer, for example, liver disease, kidney disease, intensive care, pediatric nutrition. We cover a whole range of different things. Again, by specialists. You know, we have specialists that come in to deliver this. Then we have a sports nutrition module. So I'm the co-lead of this module, along with Dr. Fausto Andriola. I lead this module, sports nutrition. I've got an interest in exercise. And again, we have specialists that come in who are, for example, experts in high performance physiology, sports nutritionists, sports dietitians who come in to deliver, essentially expert information on different topics. So if you're interested in exercise and you think you might want to go into sports nutrition, again, there's something for everyone here in the course, and this is something you want to do. Now, another thing that's becoming obviously very important, in terms of, in many different ways, in terms of understanding some nutritional problems in the world and how to solve them, is understanding public health nutrition. And then, for example, here's this behavioural nutrition. These two modules work together. They're very much linked. Is understanding, for example, the social, psychological context of different nutritional issues and conditions. So, some key examples in the world, it could be talking about obesity, which has become this huge, massive issue. So by looking at it in different ways, it could be, for example, how psychology and sociological factors affect not only obesity development, but also in terms of treatment of obesity. So I'll give you an example. In the applied nutrition module, you might learn, for example, that giving a low-calorie diet is the best way forward for reducing obesity and causing weight loss. However, in reality, we know that human beings are complicated, and there are many complex things that go on and that affect our behaviour. And actually, the key thing is actually behaviour change. Now, if you want to change someone's diet and get them to reduce weight and all the rest of it, you need to change their behaviour, their relationship that they have with food. So by understanding that, for example, in this module, this becomes really important. And so if, for example, you might want to work in, it could be in a nutrition company or work in the government, for example, trying in policy or food policy, these are the modules for you. We also have some optional modules which are really, again, very, very interesting. The ones that I haven't put here, there is one called Where Mind Meets Brain, led by Professor Paul Robinson, who is an eating disorders expert. He's a professor, as a psychiatrist. He actually runs the MSc in Eating Disorders and Clinical Nutrition that we have here at UCL, and he runs that module. So again, if you're interested in psychology behind many of these different things, something for you there. This is incorrect. It's actually the microbiome. It's not just the gut microbiome. This is led by Professor Dave Spratt, a very popular module there, nutrition students. So again, if you're interested in the microbiome, it's constantly in the news every single day, where we look at, for example, how nutrition affects the gut microbiome and how that affects disease risk, then again, there's something for you there. In the second term, we've got some other interesting things. This is obviously my thing, frailty and aging. So, one of my research interests is what happens with aging, our physiology and our nutrition, and how that might predispose us to malnutrition risk. And well, first of all, understanding what frailty is in the first place, and something that relates to frailty called sarcopenia, which is essentially muscle wasting. And I'm interested in this personally because I've done a lot of research, for example, in care homes and hospitals, looking at this. And so this, for example, is, I think it's a great module. I'm obviously biased, obviously, with that, but I have lots of clinicians coming in, so doctors, dietitians, people that have worked in care homes and hospitals treating the elderly, okay, and in all different ways, looking specifically at frailty or different clinical conditions. And again, so it's a very advanced module. I'm not aware of any other module like that in the UK, actually, in the nutrition department. We also have some other interesting optional modules available. Again, I'm the co-lead of this one, Nutrition and Cancer Treatment, which again, this is this common theme. You'll see that because we work closely with the division of cancer, which is part of the faculty of medical sciences. And so, for example, I work closely with some colleagues there, for example, Dr. Ursula McGovern, Dr. Tira Sorrentha. So we share modules. I'm the co-lead of this nutrition and cancer treatment module, Again, it's a fascinating module. We look at what happens once someone has cancer. The disease itself can have a very detrimental effect on nutritional status. So people, for example, lose a lot of weight, they get a lot of muscle wasting, it affects their quality of life. And also the survival, actually, it affects many different things. And so we're interested in that, but also it's the effect of the cancer treatment itself. So when people have things like chemotherapy and radiotherapy, how that affects their health and also nutritional status. And we talk about how that could be potentially treated. So again, in this module, we have absolute expert specialists from the hospital, so UCLH right next door to us. So we have doctors and dietitians coming in, giving specialised lectures. This module here, unfortunately, isn't running. There may be by the time you come in, it maybe it's reinstated. It was quite an interesting module. It's actually led by the anthropology department, actually, and co-led by some of the colleagues here in nutrition. An interesting module, but unfortunately at the moment not available for next year anyway. And then we have the dissertation, which is this big project that you do in term 1 and term 2. My students at the moment are currently getting prepared to submit the dissertations next week, actually. And so it's a big time for them. But this can be all sorts of things. We try to have some really interesting, exciting projects on offer. And so across the whole division of medicine, if you imagine that we have a whole range of different research departments in all sorts of different things. So just thinking of my projects alone and some of my colleagues, you could do a lab-based project, if you like something maybe more biochemical, molecular, public health nutrition project. So my colleague, Professor Nathan Davies, he does a food bank study. So we have students actually going into food banks, doing questionnaires, because you probably know in the news that, for example, food banks have become more regularly used by people because of the crisis that we have, financial crisis. As an example, we do lots of other types of stuff, sports nutrition. I'll give an example. One project I have is where we're looking specifically at different female athletes. So when you have athletes who are quite competitive, it has a strain on the body, physical and psychological strain. So you find that, for example, with elite athletes, they push themselves very hard and it affects their body. They tend to lose weight. It might affect their performance if they train too hard. And some at risk of things like eating disorders and even osteoporosis risk. And it affects things like hormones and reproductive function. So we have students, I've got 2 students at the moment doing a project. They do questionnaires online. We invite participants in, we measure their body composition. So, for example, how much muscle mass and fat mass they have. It could be measures of their physical function. We also measure some blood markers. So we do pinprick capillary testing of blood hormones, and we do dietary analysis as well. So you have a really interesting and cool project. And the thing about this is it means that students who do this come out with some really amazing skills. This is what it's all about, is developing your skills for thinking about what you might want to do later. So, for example, with this, it means you're developing skills of working with human participants, of recruiting and testing human participants. So, you know, and also there's a clinical aspect. So it might mean that actually it's really great for you if you want to go into something like clinical dietetics, or sports nutrition, or some type of human clinical research, for example. We have other projects. We do data analysis projects, if you like, statistics, for example. We do lots of different things and other public health nutrition projects, and literature reviews, systematic reviews, a whole range of different things. But the idea is it's not just all about marks and getting a first class degree, it's all about developing skills. That's what we're interested in. And I've got a slide on that here in our assessment strategy, which is about skills. But going back to their expertise, I've already just mentioned this actually. We're really lucky here, actually, compared to many other institutions, in that UCL is actually a world leader. You know, it is a world leader. It's one of the best in the world for research, research-intensive university, which means that we're very fortunate that many of our colleagues are clinicians at the hospital, for example. And so it means we actually can give you some real, actual, you know, practice-based, research-led teaching by people who work in the field. You know, for example, some of the doctors who come over to teach in our course here, it means that, you know, they might do a lecture here, then they go back to a clinic and they're working with patients. Or a really good example, I've got an example here, is our growth and development module that I run with Professor Simon Eaton over at the Institute of Child Health. You've got to remember, the division of medicine is just part of the whole university. And so we're linked in, for example, with the Institute of Child Health and Great Ormond Street Hospital. So it means that for the growth and development module, we have, you know, absolute, you know, experts in the field of things like pregnancy and infant feeding, childhood growth. And on that module alone, which is really rare actually, we have actually 4 professors who deliver lectures, who the sorts of people who actually write the textbooks. So the textbooks that you're going to buy and read about the subject, they've written these essentially, and it's quite rare to have that. So we're very lucky with it. And then going back to our skills, as I say, you know, the thing is, we try to generate some really interesting modules. You find some really interesting things, some great content, something for everyone really. Whether you're interested in sports nutrition or public health nutrition or whatever it is, there's something for everyone. But the other thing is we're trying to develop skills, knowledge, and abilities. And so that's the reason why we have different ways of teaching and learning, but we also have lots of different ways of assessing you as well. And so I've got one example at the bottom there, is that actually we do lots of presentation assessments. Now I was going to do one on Thursday for nutrition metabolism module, and we do loads across second and third year, both group and individually. And the idea is that by the end of the 3 years, you enjoy presenting, you feel confident presenting, which means that when you go to a future job or job interview, you can handle it and you have confidence and you can hold yourself and talk about the topic, which is, again, really, really important. We also assess people, you know, the sorts of exams you've probably heard of before, multiple choice question exams, which are good for testing knowledge. We do short answer question exams like mini essays, we do literature reviews, but we also do some novel things like, for example, video projects, for example, and business cases and case studies, and lots of different things like that. And it's becoming actually more innovative and novel, actually, because of the advent of technology. So because of different things out there, because of changes in technology and also artificial intelligence, we're trying to find new ways of developing innovative assessments for lots of different reasons, because we want you to come out with the skills, but also that there are other reasons why we want to do that. So, and again, after the end of this, you can ask me any questions on any of these things or assessments or what have you. But going back to the AFN, so yeah, the Association for Nutrition is essentially it's an independent regulator for nutritionists in the UK. So it's a charity. It has a key role in protecting and benefiting the public. So the idea is that if you're a registered nutritionist, you meet those core competencies and standards for evidence-based nutrition in the UK. And that's really essential, actually. And also, it becomes really important when you apply for jobs. And you can do this yourself. You can do a quick Google search looking for jobs in the UK, nutritionist jobs, and you'll see that they always ask for AFN accredited nutritionists or associate registered nutritionists. That's become pretty standard now. So the fact that our courses are fully accredited and is, you know, really absolutely great. In terms of careers, there's lots of different things you can do, tons actually, and also I think because our course is nutrition and medical sciences, it opens up that whole other sphere as well in terms of the things like the biochemistry world and lab-based worlds. Means there's lots of other things that you can do. We also find some of our students, because of this, there's one or two who actually say, no, I want to go off and study medicine. I can think of some students in our current third year who are going off to actually applying for studying medicine there, overseas. And so that's really, really quite cool, actually. We have a lot of our students, again, because of the type of course that we have, who want to go off and do things like dietetics. So, for example, working with patients, which could be in a hospital, but also could be in the community or in other backgrounds. We have less people who want to work in companies at the moment, but I think that might change with time. Now, obviously, you wouldn't be with food chemistry if you don't have the background. You'd have to do some extra stuff on that, some extra learning or another MSc course. But we find lots of nutritionists actually do work, for example, in clinical nutrition companies. I work quite closely with quite a few of these, and they're starting to take on not just dietitians, but nutritionists to give, for example, product information and work as a consultant, liaising with different health authorities, for example. It's quite interesting stuff. We had lots of students go on to do additional studies. This is very common, so master's degrees in particular, and then maybe a PhD afterwards. It tends to be mostly things like dietetics, public health and sports, to be honest. But we have had a couple of students do things like food policy and drug design, actually, and business and economics. I can think of 2 students who've gone to work in business and economics, and one in particular actually works for a medical bioscience company, which is quite interesting, but from more of a economic, financial, and also legal angle as well, which is quite interesting because they did a master's degree in this. There's lots of different things that you can do, which is really great. And the big one, as I've already mentioned, nutrition, clinical nutrition. Again, we're quite proud of this, the fact that we actually have very strong international courses on there's actually 4 MSc courses now. So we have clinical public health nutrition, which has been going around for probably about 15 years now, I think, could be longer, which was originally developed by Professor George Grimble, now led by Professor Nathan Davies. And then we have the other sister programs, eating disorders and clinical nutrition, led by Professor Paul Robinson, I mentioned earlier. We now have obesity and clinical nutrition, led by Dr. Anastasia Kalea, and the dietetics program, led by Dr. Desir Bavada. And so we find a lot of our students actually want to go on and learn more, specifically on, for example, eating disorders. We had 2 of our BSc students last year going to do eating disorders and clinical nutrition this year. Dietetics, for example, which is really popular but very competitive. We finally have about, I think it's like 170 students applying for 12 places or something this year. But the idea is that by doing the BSc, you've got more of a chance of getting onto this course, or at least getting an interview compared to someone outside, which is always positive. So there's something for everyone here. And if you like being at UCL, you want to stay at UCL, then this is something we find that quite a few of our students tend to do. Last thing to note is that we're really proud of our course. So a few years ago, there's a national student survey that's completed every single year across all the universities in the United Kingdom. And a few years ago now, it frightens me that time's going so quickly. We're now, couple of years, it's come to 2021, 22, so time is flying. But we've actually got 100% out of all the hundreds of courses in UCL, so 100% of student satisfaction, which is really, again, really fantastic. And one of the things is, we're very proud of this, but we do try to put students first. We do see this as a major priority. And so you find that people like myself, this is our major role. This is, research stuff I do is like the bit on the side, as it were, and it's linked inextricably with my teaching. Whereas in other universities, you might find, for example, you have lecturers who do a bit of teaching, but mostly research. And so they're less interested in the teaching component. And that's just the way it is. But you find that here we have lecturers who are very teaching based and focused. It's in our contract, and we love doing this. This is what we do, and we try to give students the best experience possible, really. Hopefully this year we get a similar decent result. So there we go. If you've got any questions, I think there's still only 2 of you here. So let me just check. Oh, we have 3 people here. So before I move to Noah, any questions for me quickly? Otherwise, we can save it for the main Q&A. Okay, we'll leave it to the main Q&A. So Noah, over to you. I will stop sharing. Thanks very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Noel, and I'm currently a first year nutritional sciences student. Nearly about to finish the first year now because my exams are starting. So I hope anyone can imagine my space could imagine this. I think you guys will be also preparing for your exams like A levels, IBs, or any other kind of entrance exams. I hope they go well as well. So. My experience as a nutrition science student actually went quite fun. Like normally people would say, oh, university is like a hard step for you to transition from A level to like a completely new environment. But I personally felt like that transition for me was made very easy. So there are a lot of facilities here at UCL, such as transition mentors. And the transition mentors, what would they do is they are a year ahead of us. So there'll be some second year kind of students who will come into and basically they're like a buddy scheme. So they'll be around with you, explaining you stuff, any questions that you may have for them, or like how to approach the year, or what kind of advice they would want to give to the students who are below like a year. So of what they would have done. So that kind of scheme really helped me get into the actual work ethic here at UCL. So as mentioned, we had our integrated sessions of with AMS and other sciences courses, which is quite fun. I understand that because it's a new kind of environment, everyone will be a bit scared, excited. There'll be a bit mix of emotions going here and there, and that's totally understandable. I consider myself an extrovert, but to be honest, seeing all the people at university, I realized that no, maybe I'm not that much of an extrovert as I thought I was. So, but one thing I would say is because in university everyone is in the same like boat as you. Everyone would be new to these kind of things. So I don't think it's hard for you to communicate with others because I feel like the other people are looking for opportunities to just talk to you, so you don't have to worry about anything like communication wise. So I think my settling in period went quite well. The studies themselves are actually quite well as well because I've been able to balance everything and um these days I have exams, so just preparing for them. Um, and for me, I actually don't live in student accommodations. I actually live at home. I live in like the southeast London area, so it's not that far away from me. So I just take the train. And to be honest, I think like even if you're a commuter or you're living on campus, the life at UCL is actually very easy because you have like connections to basically everywhere, like from socializing, from eating food, having fun, everything is just present there. So yeah,
Really
is there
good.
any?
So you enjoying your first year?
Yep,
Good.
definitely.
That's really good. I'm really pleased. That's very nice. I think it's probably there's pros and cons, isn't there, living at home. I think it's probably quite nice to obviously save money for starters, don't you? I mean, that's the first thing. And it's nice to have support as well. So have support everywhere. That's important. But saying that, you brought up a very good point with the fact that I think UCL is a really friendly place, and we have people from, just to say to you guys on the call, I don't know where you are listening from, but we have people from all over the place. It's a very international university. It's a very international course, as is, to be honest, most of the courses that we have in the Division of Medicine. And yeah, people really enjoy it. They enjoy that experience. It means you can mix with people from all over the world. And like I say, it could be, we have different societies as well. Have you joined any of the societies, just out of interest?
I don't, no, I haven't been able to join any societies
Because
because
that's
of like,
available as well, isn't it? If you want to.
yeah. Yeah, but I do follow a lot of societies on social media, so I know
That's
like
good.
the kind of events that are happening here and there.
That's
So if
nice.
I feel interested, I'm like, oh, I might go there.
That's good. Yeah, and that's what it should be about. Um, just any should we open up questions? No, or anything else? Sorry, I shouldn't didn't mean to cut you there. Anything else you'd like to say?
Um, I don't think there is a lot left to say, but it's just that because I understand, like, because university is like a kind of a new step into life for many people, it's totally understandable that you might feel anxious. But to be honest, because of the way how the courses are structured up, like the group presentations, the mixed kind of group, like you meet a lot of people, even if you don't talk to any. So that's what I found really helpful for me.
Great stuff, amazing. Has anyone got any questions for any of us, and myself and our anything at all? You can put it in the chat. You can turn your microphone on.
There is a question on the Q&A session. It says, may I ask how many hours of teaching will there be in a week?
So it really varies quite a lot actually from years 1, 2, and 3. And so in the first year, in fact, no, you could probably answer this because obviously you're in the first year, but there's a lot of contact time in the first year, isn't there? So you've got, like, for example, lots of lectures, you've got lots of labs and things like that. How do you find it?
I think everything is manageable. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's about you have approximately 4 out of 5 days a week, and it's about 2 hours lectures, so
Yeah.
10 hours a week. It's fine. And um, the lab sessions, they're actually split over 1 day a week, or maybe like two after 2 weeks. So it's like 1 hour or 2 hours that you come into a lab, which is normally at the Cruciform building at the main campus. And it's very fun. I'll say it's the most fun part for me because it's a bit time away from studies into the actual practical things that people might be interested into. So it's quite fun.
Most people enjoy that. Actually, it's good.
Yeah.
Actually. And we do lots of fun nutrition practice in the second year. So I teach body composition stuff and energy expenditure, for example, like dietary analysis as well. But so the first year as well, there's a lot of content in terms of hours. There's also a hell of a lot of content that has to be learned. It's just how it is because of the physiology and pathophysiology. That's just normal, you know. You've got to understand the basics first. So, but once you've done all that and a lot of extra learning, I'd say in the second and third year, there's obviously less contact time. You still obviously have your core modules, which works out, it could be 2 to 3 hours lecture per week per module, for example. I know, for example, in growth and development, it's about 3 hours a week. Then you might have a practical for 3 hours as well, for example. That's just an example of a module. But then you've got all the additional learning, which you have to do. And you can do that in group or do it at home or however you want to do it, do it online. Or, we've got a very good library. So we find lots of students hang out in the library, do study there, for example. So that's, it's really good. And then the third year, obviously, it's the same again, but you've got this extra component of dissertation. So it can take up quite a bit of time, depending on the type of project you're doing. So if you do, for example, a lab project, then it might be from January to March, you're in the lab, 2, 3 days a week. And I can think of my colleague, Professor Simon Eaton. So he's got 2 students who are just finishing up in the lab now. And it can be very time consuming. You have to be aware of that. However, we find that students seem to be fine. Lots of students tend to have like part-time jobs, actually. So it's very possible to do like 1 to 2 days a week working. It can be one day at the weekend, and could be a few afternoons and what have you. So it's very possible to work around it. Sure. Yeah.
Yep, there's another question, and it says, is it hard to enter this course, and is there any interview?
So there's no interview for this, to be honest. We tend to only have interviews for things like the professional courses like dietetics, for example, and medicine. That might change with time. I'm not, in the next 2 years or so, it might change. We start to put that in. But at the moment, if you've got the grades, you've got good grades and your personal statement is fine, that's should be okay. But there's no interview at the moment. Anything else? I can't see anything in the Q&A. Chloe and Wang, have you got anything else you'd like to ask us? You can put it in the chat, you can turn your microphone on. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if there are no other questions, and I mean, obviously, if you want to, you can obviously email us and ask us whatever you want, and that's absolutely fine. But if there's nothing else, then thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Noel, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, cheers, Kate. Okay, and thanks everyone, and have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Bye.
good evening.
Bye.